like, she wants to be an astronaut. Daddy, I want to be an astronaut. And you sit her down and you go, look, there's 7 billion people on the planet, and there's only like 7 astronauts. And only one of those is a girl. So listen, probably not going to happen. I mean, it would destroy her, right? My son, Elisha, he saw Indiana Jones. Guess what he wants to be? Yes. An archaeologist. He's like, I want to be an archaeologist. And so what if I set him down and I'm like, look, Elisha, I know that you think that they carry guns and whips and wrestle big ants, and aliens, but listen, it's a lot of reading and studying, and you can't even read that well, it's like, forget it. You guys would go, what? And somehow, though, when it's the whole crowd killing people's dreams, we're better at allowing it to happen. I mean, maybe we're not joining in like the 12. I doubt they joined in. But we're okay with allowing it to happen. I mean, if we did that to a little kid, you guys would go, you're nuts. But somehow we're okay with the crowd saying, you're crazy if you think that's going to happen. Crowds will do that. I mean, crowds will destroy your dreams. Crowds will destroy God's plans for your life. Crowds will discourage you, defeat you, tell you, no way is that going to happen. And Christian, if you're not careful, you're going to find yourself in that crowd. If you want to see the influence of a crowd, this is crazy. Go on YouTube and look up this video. 9 people grabbed a video camera and went downtown San Diego. And they decided that they were going to pretend that Michael Jackson was in a local restaurant there. And they have it all on video. So what they did is these 9 people stood out in front of this restaurant and started chanting, Michael, Michael, Michael. Come on out, Michael Jackson. We want autographs. And that 9 turned into 20, which turned into 50, which turned into 100. Michael, Michael. Go on YouTube. It's crazy. And the craziest thing, as you're watching the video, there's this guy walking by, and he's like looking at everybody, and he steps in. Michael, Michael, Mike. Like, what? And the best part of the whole video is, you know how they got out of it? You know how they ended it? A limousine was driving by, and the 9 started chasing after the limo. There he is. There he is. We missed him. Ah. And everybody's like, oh, we missed him. And they left. That was it. I mean, the owner of the restaurant came out and said, Michael's not here. And everybody's like, he's tricking us. He's in there, Crowd gets just riled up, and the next thing you know, you're just part of it. Christian, guard your heart from the crowd mob mentality. It'll destroy your faith. You know what we tell junior hires? We tell them this, because junior hires are like, I can jump into any crowd. They won't influence me. They're like super junior hires, right? This is what we tell junior hires. Say, if I put on a white glove and there's a mud puddle there, and I took my hand in the white glove in the mud puddle and rubbed it around, does the mud puddle get glovey? No. And some of you right now are laughing, you're like, ha, 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 but you don't get it. Oh, you'll get it later. You'll get it later. Write it down, and you'll figure it out. The influence is crazy. And next thing you know, you'll start doubting. Well, is God who he says he is? Really? I don't know. But you have to come to the resolve. Because you know what this blind guy did when the whole crowd turned against him? Check this out. But he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. He blocked the crowd out. You know why? Because he decided, he knew. He took a huge leap of faith. I just know this is Jesus. I just know this is going to work. I don't know how, but I believe it's going to work. He just took this huge, leap of faith. And his faith got him noticed. I'm telling you today, you have got to come to the resolve, Rock Church, that Jesus Christ is who he says he is. Bottom line. That's it. Either he is who he says he is, or he's not. There's no in between. You can't be kind of pregnant, sort of dead. It's like Jesus is Lord, or he's not. This guy said Jesus is Lord. Jesus, in verse 49, stopped. Jesus stopped and said, call him. Jesus stopped in his tracks. Is your faith strong enough to stop Jesus in his tracks? I mean, that is faith. Your faith is going to get noticed by the Lord. You know what? This book says it's impossible without faith to please God. Impossible. The kind of faith that we want to have is a faith like this that gets Jesus' attention. I mean, this is crazy faith. Stops Jesus in his tracks. Jesus calls him. Call him. So the crowd called the man. Blind man, cheer up, on your feet. He's calling you. Think about that. This whole crowd is like, shut up. Oh, he wants you. Come on. We're just kidding. Come on. We're just messing around about that shut up thing, Changes just like that. This man's faith turned the entire crowd. And this verse 50 is one of the most powerful verses in this story. Jesus says, call him in verse 49. The people said, he's calling you, go to him. Verse 50, throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. Here's what you need to know about a cloak. If you were in his state of being, that cloak was all you had. The second thing you need to know about the cloak is somebody reminded me after one of the services, and the social justice of their government, if you were handicapped of some sort, you would stand in this line and wait, and then when you actually saw the governing officials, you would say, I'm handicapped, and they would say, yes, you are, and they'd hand you a special handicap robe, which gave you permission to beg. That robe was his significance. That robe was his meal ticket. That robe was all that he was, his identity. Here's the third thing you need to know about that robe, that cloak. Jesus didn't ask for it. Jesus just said, hey, tell him to come over here. Jesus didn't say, tell him to drop his cloak and come over here. Jesus said, just tell him to come to me. And he knew that what Jesus had to offer was bigger than his identity, bigger than his only possession, and bigger than his handicap. He throws it off. I don't need it anymore. He wasn't healed at this point. He was still blind. He throws it off. I don't need it. Man, we go to Mexico and Jamaica, and we work with these little kids in these neighborhoods, and they come walking up with these jacked up toys, like this Barbie doll without a head, or a teddy bear missing limbs, or a truck with 2 wheels, and they're holding on to this toy for dear life. You know why? Because it's their only possession. How hard would it be for you to let go of your only possession without even being asked? I mean, what are you holding on to right now that's more important than what Jesus has for you? And you go, you know what, God? You can have this. You can have this. You can have, I'm tired of him. You can have him. I'm tired. You can have that. This right here, you can't have. It's mine. In fact, you gave it to me, remember? I prayed, and then I had it, and it's mine. No regifting, God. It's mine. You're just hanging on to it. Because you don't have faith enough to trust that if you give it to God, he's going to give you something better. Or maybe he'll give it back to you. He just wants to know how important he is in your life. He doesn't even have to ask this blind man, gone. What do you got for me, Jesus? Verse 51. Jesus says this, what do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked him. The blind man said, Rabbi, I want to see. Now, it sounds like an obvious question. The man was obviously blind. Everybody could see that. Jesus could see that. Jesus is asking an obvious question. And sometimes obvious questions are very significant. Little kids are classic at asking obvious questions or making obvious statements. My son, I wrote some down here. He says this, Daddy, this water is wet. Yes, it is. You were right about that. Daddy, having no food makes me really hungry. Yes, it does. Daddy, this is a long line. There must be a crowd. Long line is the crowd, right? Then the other day he says to me, Daddy, you're going to be my daddy forever. I thought to myself, if he got this from his mommy, that's a good thing, right? Right? She told him that. The next thought was, I am going to be his daddy forever? Wow.